The smell of apple blossoms used to be my salvation. For 43 years, I poured my sweat into those trees, building heartland orchards from nothing into the crown jewel of Washington State's apple country. $5 million, that's what developers offered me last year. I said no. My son Jason said I was a fool. "Dad, you're getting older. This is your retirement." I should have seen it then. That gleam in his eyes wasn't concern, it was calculation. 3 months ago, I signed over operational control to him while recovering from my heart attack. Just temporary, he promised. Yesterday, I found out he'd sold everything, the entire 120 acres, except for one pathetic acre with my house and a few diseased trees. My life's work gone, my legacy destroyed, and my son? Vanished with the money, leaving me nothing but this rotten core of what was once my dream. But what Jason doesn't know is that I found something in his abandoned office that changes everything. I wasn't born into farming, I chose it. After Vietnam, I came back shattered to a country that didn't want me. My father, a steel mill foreman in Pittsburgh, couldn't understand why his son would waste his GI Bill on agricultural studies instead of business. "Dirt farmers die poor," he'd say, usually after his third bourbon. When I met Sarah at Washington State University, she believed in my dream. We married young, scraped together every penny, and bought a neglected 30-acre plot in Wenatchee Valley. The first decade was brutal. Frost damage, market crashes, bank loans with interest rates that kept me awake at night. But Sarah never complained, even when our farmhouse roof leaked onto our bed during those fierce Pacific Northwest storms. Jason was born in 1985, during the worst drought in county history. I remember holding him while staring out at rows of struggling saplings, promising him that someday this would all be his. His sister Emma came 3 years later, completing our family. The kids grew up between the trees. Jason was always the serious one, counting apples, helping with grafting even before he could reach the branches without a ladder. "Dad's little businessman," Sarah called him. He memorized apple varieties like other kids memorized baseball stats. Honeycrisp, Gala, Pink Lady, Brayburn. By high school, he could taste an apple and tell you not just the variety, but which part of our orchard it came from. Emma was different, artistic, dreamy. She'd sit for hours sketching the twisted trunks of our oldest trees. The orchard inspired her, but never defined her the way it did Jason and me. When Sarah got sick in 2003, aggressive breast cancer, everything changed. I still remember Jason at 18, standing ramrod straight at her funeral, refusing to cry, already trying to be the man of the family. Emma collapsed in grief, but Jason just squared his shoulders and asked about irrigation schedules for the following week. That year, he deferred college to help me keep the orchard running. I was too lost in grief to argue. By the time he finally left for his business degree at UW 2 years later, he knew as much about apple farming as men twice his age. I was so damn proud. The years passed. Emma moved to Portland, married an accountant, had kids, distanced herself from the orchard and the memories it held. But Jason always came back during breaks, summers, eventually after graduation. He brought new ideas, organic certification, agritourism, direct-to-consumer marketing. Under our partnership, Heartland Orchards expanded, thrived, modernized. What I didn't see then were the signs. The way he'd scrutinize land values in neighboring counties. His frustration when I refused offers from developers. His impatience when I insisted on keeping certain heirloom varieties that weren't commercially viable, but that Sarah had loved. "Sentiment doesn't pay bills, Dad," became his mantra. Still, the day I added him to the land deed on his 35th birthday, I believed I was securing my legacy. The photograph from that day, us standing beneath the ancient Gravenstein apple tree that Sarah planted, still sits on my mantel. Both of us smiling. Both of us hiding secrets. Mine was that I'd been diagnosed with heart problems a month earlier but hadn't told anyone. His, as I would learn too late, was that he'd already been in talks with Columbia Valley Development Corporation about what my orchard could become once I was out of the picture. It was mid-March when my heart decided to remind me I wasn't immortal. I collapsed while pruning the north section. Thankfully, Emma was visiting with her kids that weekend. The doctors called it a moderate myocardial infarction, but there was nothing moderate about having your chest crushed in a vice while the world goes sideways. After the surgery, Jason appeared in my hospital room with a stack of papers and that MBA confidence that always reminded me of a young banker foreclosing on a family farm. "It's just temporary, Dad," he assured me, his Mont Blanc pen hovering over the documents. "Operational control while you recover. The spring pruning decisions can't wait, and we've got that new Cosmic Crisp section that needs attention." Emma stood by the window, arms crossed. "Maybe we should wait until Dad's stronger," she suggested. Jason's jaw tightened the way it always did when challenged. "The orchard doesn't wait for convenient timing. The Stemmelt cooperative meeting is next week, and the new irrigation system contract needs signing." I signed. What choice did I have? The doctor had been clear, no physical labor for at least 3 months. The orchard couldn't run itself. Recovery was slower than I'd hoped. By late April, I was shuffling around the farmhouse, but Jason had moved into high gear. He hired 3 new managers, all with corporate agricultural backgrounds, and set up his command center in what had been Sarah's sewing room. He rarely included me in decisions anymore, deflecting my questions with, "Just focus on getting better, Dad." The first real alarm bell rang when Hector Ramirez, our orchard manager for 20 years, showed up at my door one evening, hat in hand. "Don Hartland," he said, using the respectful address he'd always used despite my protests, "I think you should know. Your son, he is asking many questions about property lines, about water rights. Yesterday, men in suits were measuring near the creek boundary." I confronted Jason that night at dinner. He dismissed Hector's concerns with a wave of his hand. "We're just updating the property survey for insurance purposes," he said, not meeting my eyes. And I had to let Hector go, by the way. His methods are outdated. "Outdated?" I nearly choked. "That man knows every inch of this land better than either of us. Dad, this isn't 1985 anymore. Modern orchards need modern management." 2 weeks later, Emma called in tears. "Dad, is it true? Jason told me you're considering selling the east section to developers?" It was the first I'd heard of it. When I tried to access our business accounts online, my passwords had been changed. When I called our longtime banker at Wenatchee Valley Credit Union, she sounded uncomfortable, saying, "Mr. Hartland, I can only discuss these matters with the operating manager. Your son has been very clear about the new arrangement." May brought apple blossoms and strangers to the orchard. Men and women with clipboards and laser measuring tools, walking the rows, taking soil samples. When I approached them, they'd smile vaguely and say they were just consultants for the new efficiency program. Through Bobby Chen, whose family owned the neighboring cherry orchard, I learned that rezoning applications had been filed for Heartland property. Commercial rezoning. The confrontation happened on a perfect spring evening, the kind Sarah and I used to spend on the porch, watching the sunset paint the Cascade foothills gold and purple. Jason's BMW rolled up the gravel drive, and I was waiting. "No more lies," I said as he stepped onto the porch. "What are you doing to my orchard?" Something flickered across his face, not guilt, but irritation at being caught. "Our orchard, Dad, and I'm bringing it into the 21st century. By selling it off? By maximizing its potential." He sat down, smoothing his tailored pants. "Look, I've been wanting to have this conversation. The truth is, this land is worth far more than apples could ever produce. The Columbia Valley proposal would transform these acres into a mixed-use development. Luxury homes, boutique shops, even an artisanal cidery that would preserve part of the orchard as a showpiece. And erase everything your mother and I built? He sighed with the exaggerated patience of someone explaining simple math to a child. What you built is equity, Dad. $5 million of it. That's your legacy, not some trees that need replacing every 20 years anyway. That's when I saw it, the disconnection. To Jason, the orchard had never been about the land, the trees, the rhythm of seasons. It had always been numbers on a spreadsheet. I won't allow it, I said. His smile was cold. Actually, Dad, you already did. Check the paperwork you signed in the hospital. Operational control includes development decisions for the next 6 months. As darkness fell across the valley, I realized I was fighting for more than apple trees. I was fighting for my life's meaning. The annual Apple Blossom Festival in Wenatchee has been a Heartland family tradition since before Jason was born. This year, it coincided with my grandson Ethan's 10th birthday, bringing Emma and her family back from Portland. Jason had RSVP'd to our family dinner at the Riverfront restaurant, the first time we'd all be together since my heart attack. I arrived early, my gift for Ethan tucked under my arm, a hand-carved wooden box containing seeds from our oldest apple trees, along with the journal I'd kept of their growing cycles for 40 years. Not the PlayStation he probably wanted, but something that mattered. The restaurant was packed with festival goers, many of whom called out greetings to me. In a town like Wenatchee, a third-generation orchardist gets recognized. I nodded to Bill Simmons from the Growers Association, waved to the Martinez family, who'd picked our harvest for 3 generations. Emma arrived with her husband and kids, hugging me fiercely. "You look better, Dad," she whispered. "Looks can be deceiving," I replied. Jason arrived 20 minutes late with a woman I'd never met, tall, blonde, wearing jewelry that probably cost more than my monthly operating budget. "Dad, this is Vanessa Chen. Her family's development company is partnering with us on the new project." Chen, Bobby Chen's niece. The pieces clicked into place. "Pleasure," I said, not extending my hand. Funny, Bobby didn't mention his family was in development now, not just cherries. Vanessa's smile never wavered. "Uncle Bobby prefers to focus on tradition. I prefer to focus on the future." Throughout the appetizers, Jason and Vanessa dominated the conversation with talk of property transformation and legacy investments. Emma grew increasingly uncomfortable, shooting worried glances my way. My grandson fidgeted, bored by adult talk. When the main course arrived, Jason tapped his water glass. "I'd like to make an announcement," he said, flashing that confident smile he'd perfected in business school. "As most of you know, Dad's health scare forced him to step back from daily operations at Heartland Orchards. What you don't know is that it's given us an opportunity to secure the family's future." He nodded to Vanessa, who produced a glossy folder. "I'm proud to announce that Heartland Estates will break ground next month," Jason continued, opening the folder to reveal architectural renderings. 115 luxury homes, a boutique hotel, and the Heartland Heritage Cidery, which will preserve the story of our family's agricultural roots. The table fell silent. Emma's husband whispered, "Did you know about this?" Before Emma could respond, I found my voice. "And what about the actual orchard, Jason?" His smile tightened. "Dad, we've discussed this. The orchard isn't financially sustainable long-term." "You mean it doesn't make enough millions fast enough?" I said, my voice carrying across the restaurant. Nearby tables quieted, sensing drama. "This is hardly the place," Jason began. "It's exactly the place," I interrupted, standing up. "Right here in the town that's supported Heartland apples for nearly half a century. In front of your sister, who doesn't even know you've sold her birthright." The restaurant had gone completely silent now. At the bar, I spotted Hector Ramirez and several of my former workers watching intently. 3 days ago, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me, I discovered that my son has not only sold our entire orchard without my knowledge, but he's left me with exactly 1 acre surrounding my house. 1 acre out of 120. Gasps rippled through the restaurant. Emma's face drained of color. "Dad, you signed the operational agreement," Jason said, his voice lowered but hard. "And frankly, you should be thanking me. Your share is nearly $2 million. My share," the laugh that escaped me held no humor, "of what was already mine?" "Actually," Vanessa interjected smoothly, "the development value far exceeds the agricultural value. It's a win for everyone." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the documents I'd found hidden in Jason's office while he was in Seattle. "Is that why the deed transfer lists the sale price as $5 million, but the contract with Columbia Valley Development is for $8? Jason's face went white. $3 million, I said, slapping the papers on the table. "That's the price of my son's betrayal." The silence in the restaurant was absolute. Even my grandson had stopped fidgeting, his young eyes wide with confusion. "You went through my office?" Jason's voice shook with indignation. "And you sold my life's work behind my back," I countered. "The difference is, what I did wasn't illegal." I turned to Vanessa. "But fraud and elder exploitation are. So is violating the terms of land held in agricultural trust, which 70 acres of Heartland orchards have been since 2010. Jason stood up so abruptly his chair crashed backward. "You never told me about any trust." "You never asked." I gathered the documents and turned to leave, then paused. "Happy birthday, Ethan," I said, placing the wooden box in front of my grandson. "That's real legacy, not something you sell, but something you nurture." As I walked out, Bill Simmons from the Growers Association followed me. "Frank," he called, "whatever happens, we've got your back." Behind me, I could hear Emma's voice rising in anger at her brother, the murmurs of the townsfolk, and the unmistakable sound of Jason's carefully constructed deal beginning to crumble. The next 72 hours were a blur of legal meetings and community rallies. News travels fast in agricultural communities. By sunrise the day after the restaurant confrontation, every orchard family in the valley had heard how Jason Heartland had tried to sell out his father and the region's agricultural heritage. Emma moved into my guest room, her lawyer husband Craig making calls to his contacts in real estate law. "The trust documentation is solid, Dad," he assured me. "They can't touch the 70 acres in the agricultural trust, but we need to act fast on the other 50. By noon, 3 neighboring orchard families had gathered at my kitchen table, the Chens, the Williamses, and the Ortiz Garcias, all facing the same development pressures that threatened to transform the valley. Bobby Chen looked grim. "My niece does not speak for our family," he said. "We stand with you, Frank." Maria Ortiz Garcia, whose family had worked the adjacent property for 30 years, nodded in agreement. "This valley grows food, not vacation homes." What none of us expected was the community response. By evening, #SaveHeartlandOrchards was trending locally on social media. The local newspaper ran a front-page story featuring a photograph of me taken years ago during harvest, standing proudly among my trees. The Wenatchee World headline read, "Heartland Betrayal Highlights Development Threat to Agricultural Heritage." The Columbia Valley Development Corporation's PR team went into overdrive, issuing statements about sustainable development and honoring agricultural traditions through modern land use. But the tide of public opinion had turned decisively against them. Jason tried calling multiple times. I let his calls go to voicemail. His messages evolved from defensive, "You don't understand the financial realities," to desperate, "The investors are threatening legal action against me personally."
On the third day, Megan Reeves from the County Land Trust knocked on my door. She'd brought with her an environmental law specialist and a proposition I hadn't considered. "Mr. Hartland, would you consider placing more of your land in conservation easements?" she asked as we sat on the porch. "The tax benefits would be substantial, and it would permanently protect the land from development." Craig, Emma's husband, leaned forward. "The easement could include provisions for continued agricultural use. It's not just protection, it's preservation of purpose." That afternoon, while I was meeting with the Land Trust, Emma discovered something unexpected while sorting through old family files. She burst into the kitchen waving yellowed papers, her eyes bright with tears. "Dad, did you know Mom had started this process before she got sick?" The documents were preliminary applications for the same type of conservation easements we'd been discussing. Sarah had begun researching agricultural preservation options nearly 20 years ago, foreseeing the development pressure that would eventually threaten our way of life. "She never told me," I said, my fingers tracing her handwriting. "She wrote notes in the margins," Emma said, pointing. "For Jason's children someday. Real wealth grows from the ground up." The irony was painful. Sarah had been trying to protect a legacy for the very son who was now trying to dismantle it. That evening, a knock at the door revealed the last person I expected, Vanessa Chen. "Mr. Hartland," she said, her corporate polish somewhat diminished, "may I speak with you privately?" In my living room, she placed a USB drive on the coffee table. "Jason doesn't know I'm here."
There are recorded conversations on this drive that you should hear before you make any decisions about legal action. The recordings revealed that Jason had been approached by developers over a year ago, long before my heart attack. He'd been laying groundwork, positioning himself, waiting for an opportunity. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked her. "Because Bobby Chen is my uncle, and he reminded me that our family didn't come to this valley to destroy what generations had built." She stood to leave. "Also, Jason tried to cut me out of the deal yesterday. Loyalty matters in business, Mr. Hartland." When Jason finally appeared at my door the following day, he looked like he'd aged a decade. No designer clothes, no confident smile. Just my son, broken by his own ambition. "The deal's collapsed," he said without preamble. "Columbia's pulling out due to community relations concerns and potential legal complications." "And the money?" I asked. "The initial payment is in escrow. It'll be returned." He couldn't meet my eyes. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me." "Good, because I don't forgive you. Not yet." His head snapped up, that word, yet, offering more hope than he'd expected. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "The 70 acres in trust stay as they are. For the remaining land, we're creating conservation easements that allow agricultural use in perpetuity. You're going to work with the land trust to make it happen. And then? And then you're going to work the land, Jason, not manage it from an office, work it, for at least one full growing season. You'll live in the foreman's house, not your condo in Seattle. You'll draw a worker's salary, not an executive's. And maybe you'll remember what your mother and I tried to teach you about real value. And if I refuse? Then Emma inherits everything, and you get nothing but the knowledge that you destroyed your family for money you'll never see." 2 months later, Jason moved into the foreman's house. Hector Ramirez agreed to return as orchard manager with the explicit understanding that Jason would work under his direction. The conservation easements were being finalized, with Emma taking the lead on creating an educational foundation that would ensure school children could continue learning about sustainable agriculture through visits to Heartland orchards. The most unexpected development came through Vanessa Chen. After leaving the development corporation, she approached me with a business proposal, a small batch cidery using only heritage apple varieties from Wenatchee Valley orchards, with profits partially funding agricultural education programs.
"If we're going to add value to these apples," she explained, "let's do it in a way that honors them, not erases them." As summer ripened into fall, I watched my son gradually transform. The physical labor stripped away his corporate veneer. His hands grew calloused, his face weathered. One evening, I found him sitting under Sarah's favorite Gravenstein tree, studying her old notes on conservation easements. "I didn't understand," he said simply when he saw me. "No," I agreed, "you didn't." "Do you think she would have forgiven me?" he asked, meaning Sarah. "Your mother always believed in second chances," I replied. "She also believed people had to earn them." The first harvest under our new arrangement was smaller but more meaningful than any in recent memory. As we worked side by side picking apples in the crisp October air, I realized that what I'd nearly lost, and what we were slowly rebuilding, wasn't just an orchard, but a connection to something that money could never buy. Today, as I walk through rows of trees heavy with this year's harvest, I'm reminded that some betrayals, painful as they are, force us to rediscover what truly matters. The orchard is different now, smaller in some ways, bigger in others. The conservation easements protect 110 acres in perpetuity. The Heartland Heritage Foundation, run by Emma, brings school children to learn about sustainable agriculture through visits to Heartland orchards. The most unexpected development came through Vanessa Chen. After leaving the Development Corporation, she approached me with a business proposal: a small batch cidery using only heritage apple varieties from Wenatchee Valley orchards, with profits partially funding agricultural education programs. "If we're going to add value to these apples," she explained, "let's do it in a way that honors them, not erases them." As summer ripened into fall, I watched my son gradually transform. The physical labor stripped away his corporate veneer. His hands grew calloused, his face weathered. One evening, I found him sitting under Sarah's favorite Gravenstein tree, studying her old notes on conservation easements. "I didn't understand," he said simply when he saw me. "No," I agreed, "you didn't." "Do you think she would have forgiven me?" he asked, meaning Sarah. "Your mother always believed in second chances," I replied. "She also believed people had to earn them." The first harvest under our new arrangement was smaller but more meaningful than any in recent memory. As we worked side by side picking apples in the crisp October air, I realized that what I'd nearly lost, and what we were slowly rebuilding, wasn't just an orchard, but a connection to something that money could never buy. Today, as I walk through rows of trees heavy with this year's harvest, I'm reminded that some betrayals, painful as they are, force us to rediscover what truly matters. The orchard is different now, smaller in some ways, bigger in others. The conservation easements protect 110 acres in perpetuity. The Heartland Heritage Foundation, run by Emma, brings school children to learn about sustainable agriculture. And Jason? He's still earning his second chance, one season at a time. Last week, I watched him teaching Ethan how to test apples for ripeness. His patience with his nephew, something I'd never seen before. "The secret," I overheard him say, "is understanding that the tree knows what it's doing. Our job is to listen." Maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Sometimes, even at 66, you have to lose almost everything to hear what the land and your heart have been telling you all along. The orchard was never just about apples. It was about roots that run deeper than any deed or dollar amount.
If you faced betrayal by someone you trusted, remember this: true legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's what you rebuild when everything falls apart. If my story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and share your own stories of rebuilding in the comments below. Sometimes, even in the orchard of life, a little pruning makes way for the sweetest fruit.